Straight to our top story now, and the buses carrying the Ukrainian soldiers who had been defending the Azovstal steelworks have begun arriving in Russian-controlled territory. Now, a convoy of at least 7 buses has been seen leaving the besieged region, arriving at a former penal colony near Donetsk. Neither Russia nor Ukrainian officials have confirmed the arrivals, but a news agency in Russia says its nation's investigative committee plans to question the soldiers. Now, Moscow says it will be investigating Ukrainian regime crimes. But now the soldiers have been evacuated, so what happens from here? The exact details of any deal made between Russia and Ukraine remains under wraps, but Kyiv has previously indicated its forces will be exchanged for Russian prisoners of war. Moscow is yet to confirm this publicly, with the Kremlin avoiding questions on the prisoners' status of possible transfer. But Ukrainian officials will be likely holding their breath, with individuals, including a senior Russian MP, accusing the Ukrainian soldiers of being Nazis and war criminals. The MP has requested their exchange be banned altogether, as Russia's Supreme Court will decide whether to uphold a request to designate the group many of the fighters belong to as a terrorist organisation. But despite all of this, Ukraine says it was left with just one option: to save lives. Now, for further analysis on this, let's bring in Maksym Yali, who is a political expert and Professor of International Relations at Kyiv Aviation University, and joins us now. Maxim, lovely to have your company today. Thank you for joining us during this time. Before we get into the finer details of what's unfolding recently, you're in Kyiv. Firstly, how are you? You've just shared footage of where you used to live, completely destroyed. This is heartbreaking.
Yes, it is heartbreaking, but in Kiev, in comparison with Mariupol, my native city, the situation is pretty well. Because, my mother and sister were there during that nightmare. And of course, after I evacuated them, I feel myself much better. But still, every day watching videos, photos of my destroyed native city, of course, I feel terribly sad and gloom. And of course, all our attention now, I mean, of all Ukrainian people and all over the world is put to Azovstal plant where our heroes keep resistance for more than 80 days. And we still now entertain a hope that their lives will be saved and we will get them back safe and sound. Though, unfortunately, there are still doubts about that. As you mentioned it, the Parliament of Russia is preparing the law to forbid to exchange representatives of Azov regiments from Azovstal to their soldiers, which also we have in Ukraine. And we also aware that Russia does not obey their promises and even international laws, even bilateral laws. As you know, we have signed many of them, but they violated Budapest Memorandum and bilateral agreement where they stated they adjust our sovereignty and territorial integrity. But as you know, history proves Russia cannot be trusted, and especially President Putin as a whole.
I think that's the biggest word you've used there is a lack of trust here, isn't there? And it goes back to the very start of this war when Russia said their troops were amassing along the border and they weren't going to invade, and then they did just that. So it all goes back to a definite lack of trust. They say one thing and seem to do another. Ukrainian officials have said that they have one thing in mind here in regards to Azovstal, and that is to save lives. How do they plan on doing that? How do you see these next couple of days or weeks playing out?
Well, actually, we don't have any details. We all listened to our President Zelensky last night and representative of the Ministry of Defense. They were saying that they had been negotiating for quite a long time, but no details. And actually, many in Ukraine suppose that it was, first of all, the decision of the commander-in-chief there in Azovstal of our defenders, and it was also supported by the Minister of Defense, by the President Zelensky. So it was a common decision, and the main goal is to save lives, especially of those who are hardly wounded. Yesterday, about 50 of them were evacuated from Azovstal. Today, some part also. But as you know, the point is that only a few of them came to hospital. The rest who surrendered, they went to prison, but in Russian-controlled territories, it next to Donetsk, Helenivka. My coach, by the way, who was captured, my coach of boxing, just civilian who was captured on the check-in post is there. So I know how difficult situation is there. Moreover, some of them were transferred even to Rostov. It's the territory of Russia. So as
Yes.
you see, Russia cannot be trusted. They do not obey their promises, especially those they didn't give officially. I suppose they were keeping negotiations with defenders, with military Ministry of Defense, but we don't know, unfortunately, those peculiarities of it. And taken into account, as I have already mentioned, how many times Russia didn't obey their promises. Unfortunately, we just still entertain a hope and hope for the international assistance in that sphere,
Yes.
and also attention of media to keep it, because as you know, to know how many people there captured, because as you know,
Let's talk
statistics. I
about.
will give you just
I wanted to speak.
statistics. Yeah.
I wanted to speak about the international support there, just while you mentioned that, because it's difficult for us and we're abroad to speak about what's unfolding in Ukraine, the atrocities that we're witnessing. It's difficult for me to report on it every single day, so I can't imagine what it's like for you living through this and witnessing what's unfolding to your country. It must be extremely difficult. But how does this war end? What more international support does Ukraine need? What do you want to see brought to your country to help bring an end to this war?
First of all, we there are two options. We need most of all. Firstly, military assistance, weapons, especially artillery, aircraft, moreover, to close our sky. That's what we are begging for international society. All that more than 2 months since full-fledged war began. Second, we need sanctions, embargo for the oil, because as you know, it costs about $900 million 1 day of war for Russia, for Putin, but he
Yes.
gets at least $1 billion for the oil and gas every month. So as you know, these sanctions do not work and they will not stop war until he gets that finance, until there is no bankruptcy, collapse of economy, until it is
Yes.
he even earns money every day. So that's the point. And
A
of
really
course,
powerful point you've
financial
made.
assistance as well we need.
A really powerful point you've made
Yes,
there. There's still billions flowing into Russia every single day for their energy, and that's going to hurt Putin the most when that is eventually cut off. Thank you for your time today, Maxim. Really appreciate it. Please take care. Our thoughts and prayers are with you and everybody in the region at the moment.
you're welcome.